All right, guys, final segment of today's Sons of the Shoe. And obviously, we like to do our Michigan panic meter here. My panic is not changed. How about you, Spencer?
Yeah, I think we're both going to be in the dark gray still. No change, even with the Bill O'Brien departure. The only thing I think that would sway that specific thing happening that would maybe sway the meter is if that means, like we talked about last episode, that Julian Sayin leaves with him. You know what I mean? And I don't think it'd be a major sway. I think it would just be, are any of these kids now like, well, I was actually looking forward to playing with Ryan or to playing with under Bill O'Brien. I actually want to follow him, but I don't know that that's going to be the case, especially because most of these guys, Julian Sayin included, came on or signed on here, or did was he before or after Bill? I don't know.
Saying followed O'Brien.
Okay, but the rest, we're all kind of pre Bill O'Brien hire, so I'm not as worried about that.
So the other thing that kind of tangibly impacts Ohio State and Michigan is hiring Wink Martindale, former Giants, former Ravens defensive coordinator.
Yeah.
So the roundabout, the Baltimore to Michigan pipeline continues. And I think, listen, I do think this is a good thing for Michigan because, one, Don Martindale is really well respected as a defensive coordinator. And I think the other thing is, I think it does show that Sharon Moore continues to solicit advice from both Harbaughs. And I mean, I think the exodus from Ann Arbor has been a lot more significant of coaches following Harbaugh or going into the NFL like Jay Harbaugh, Jim Harbaugh's son, is the special teams coordinator in Seattle. So, like, I think the exodus out of Ann Arbor for the coaches was much more than people expected. So to see that Sharon didn't panic, to see that Sharon was able to go to and keep those relationships intact, and he's hiring guys with connections. Like, I think that's a good sign if you're a Michigan fan. I don't know that it's a bad sign if you're an Ohio State fan, but I think you're always looking for cracks with a new coach, a first-time coach at a power program. When more coaches started going, initially it was going to be three guys. When more coaches started going, I understood a little bit of the agita from Michigan fans, but Wink Martindale is a hell of a follow-up to Jesse Mentor as the defensive coordinator in Ann Arbor.
Yeah, it's been nice to sit back and just kind of laugh at their expense a little bit over the last week as more coaches were following Harbaugh. And I know Ari Wasserman was tweeting about how it can be hard as a first-time head coach when you're getting your staff sort of purged this way. And so he's kind of set up in a tough situation. But if you're a Michigan fan, if we were doing the reverse Michigan panic meter like we did a couple episodes ago, I can see why you'd maybe be in the, I forget which side we had on what, but I can see why you maybe be in the blue versus the maize, because you're like, oh no, we're losing our coaches. I think a move like adding Don Martindale actually sways you back towards almost the middle, where you're like, okay, like that's a really good hire. He's a guy who's similar, I think, to the Bill O'Brien hire at Ohio State. Like, it's a veteran coach who's done it at the NFL level, who could do it at the college level. And it solidifies that Sharon Moore isn't just going to have this like piecemeal together staff. He's going and getting some bigger fish and trying to revamp the staff around him the right way. So yeah, I think that's absolutely like a win of an addition for the Wolverines.
So not only do we have that to talk about, but Ohio State is building quite a streak here. As last night at the NFL Honors, C.J. Stroud was mentioned and named the AP's Offensive Rookie of the Year. I think that was an obvious choice, but that now makes two Ohio State players in a row to win the Offensive Player of the Year. 2 years ago, it was Garrett Wilson, Jets wide receiver. And now, like, not to get all greedy, but I think you can go 3 for 3, right?
I think that, yeah, I mean, that's the question I want to ask for our listeners as well. Do you think that Ohio State can go 3 for 3 with Offensive Rookie of the Year back to back to back? Garrett Wilson, C.J. Stroud, and then Marvin Harrison Jr., who we know is going to be a highly touted prospect. I think it's definitely, like, if I'm putting money on this, like if I have a chance to bet on this, and at some point it'll be a thing, I'm sure, after the draft, like who's going to be Offensive Rookie of the Year, and I may actually put some money on it, because I think it's more than likely, when you think about this rookie class, and there may be some guys that emerge, and it's obviously hard to trump a quarterback, but it happened 2 years ago with Wilson. I would put money on it being Marvin Harrison Jr. just because of what I've said before, that I don't know if there's been a wide receiver that I've seen anywhere that the moment they get drafted, they're already, I would consider them like a top 10 receiver in the NFL. Like, I think that is how good Marvin Harrison Jr. is. I think he's going to instantly, we'll see it from game one on, that this guy is just a freak. He is built different. He, throw out whatever qualifier you want. And
he's that guy.
Yeah. He's got that dog in him. I truly believe he's going to be a top 10 wide receiver from the moment he gets drafted and steps on the field. So barring an injury, I think it's going to happen. I think Marvin Harrison Jr. make it 3 in a row for the Buckeyes.
So I think the toughest thing is because what you're really fighting, this is also a quarterback award.
Yeah, that's what's tough.
Unless you either drastically outperform a quarterback or the quarterbacks just suck. So I think Marvin, if you had said going into each of these last 3 years, Garrett Wilson 2 years ago, CJ going into this year, Marvin next year. If 3 years ago we knew the profile and the performance of each one of those 3 guys, who would have the best chance of being offensive rookie of the year, hands down, you'd say Marvin. If you were able to like track the trajectory of how great a player is, and what I think Marvin steps in is a like top 10 wide receiver. I think he steps in as an impact difference maker kind of player. So I think he has a real chance. But I also think the other reason why it feels more like a chance is Caleb Williams is going to be a top 5 pick, top 10 pick. But stock is down from him to where it was a year ago. Drake May. I really thought Drake May would get a lot more love going into the draft because he kind of fits. I mean, he's big, he's physical, he's got a great arm.
It's not too late. There's always that random. We start, April. It always feels like we get a new report like this guy's rising, this guy's falling every single time.
Well, but I mean, like you look at Drake. I think he's a top 5, top 10 pick, but I don't know people expect him to be great in his rookie year. And JJ McCarthy, any of these other guys, I don't think anybody expects these guys to step in and be an impact player. And by the way, CJ Stroud is the anomaly. Like, rookie quarterbacks that step in immediately become one of the 10 best quarterbacks in the NFL, immediately are the reason their team wins by a significant margin, and their team wins. That doesn't happen. We've had really good rookie seasons, right, where they win the offensive player of the year, but maybe the team doesn't win. Or we've had, okay, they're on a winning team, but it's like, oh, well, they're more of a system quarterback, right? Like, this is a clear-cut case where CJ Stroud is a baller. He is 90% of the reason why the Texans won this last year, because their roster still isn't great. And then they did win. Like, they won at a high clip and they won a playoff game. So I think that is what makes CJ the unicorn in all this. But it's just so tough. Like, I tend to think Caleb Williams has the best chance to step in and be an impact player because he just was so special. Even this year, even though they didn't win a lot at USC, he was just so special as a player that it's just tough to believe a guy that was that good for 3 years in college at 2 different programs isn't going to be an immediate impact player. But I guess as part of this is, where do they end up?
Yeah. Situation 100% matters. Like, you look at the draft order and obviously a lot of this is still fluid, but are the Bears actually going to take Caleb Williams at 1, or are they going to trade back? Where does that leave Marvin with Washington and New England up next on the board? Like, are they going to both take a quarterback? There's been some people linking Marvin Harrison Jr. to New England. If that's the case and they pass up on for a quarterback, is Mac Jones going to be throwing to him? Because I don't know if that's the best situation for him. Granted, Garrett Wilson did win it with Zach Wilson throwing him the football, and the pre-Cleveland version of Joe Flacco, which wasn't very good. So yeah, but if he ends up in Arizona, like if he falls to 4 and the Cardinals take him, Kyler Murray's a fine NFL quarterback. Like, that might be a good situation for him. So situation definitely matters. But I just think
real quick, I was talking more about the situation the quarterbacks end up in.
Well, that's part of it too.
I almost think like Marvin's so box office. It's not that it doesn't matter. Like, I mean, look at Travis Kelce's numbers before Pat Mahomes and after. Like, he was great, but he is clearly otherworldly.
He's going to get the
since
football.
Linking up with Mahomes. Yeah.
He's going to get the football.
With Marvin, there's a significant difference if your quarterback's Justin Fields or Kyler Murray and it's Mac Jones.
Sure.
But man, I got to tell you, from the quarterback perspective, like if Caleb Williams ends up in Washington, that's a couple year build. If Drake May ends up in Washington or New England, and New England does have some assets, but like there's not a team that I look at in that first top five that if you take a quarterback, I'm convinced that quarterback's going to do what CJ Stroud did and win, play well, and be the reason you won, and then get you the playoffs all in their rookie year. That continues to be the CJ Stroud reset the standard for rookie quarterbacks in the NFL, taking over a team that had the number 2 pick. And then the next year, not only are you in the playoffs, you won a division nobody gave you a chance in, and then you win and beat one of the best regular season teams in the NFL in Cleveland, who, if not for the stupid way that they do playoffs, Cleveland would have been the 3 seed if they didn't favor teams that won the division.
Yeah, I think you're right on Stroud. Like he's kind of set the bar at a different level and is almost an anomaly or a unicorn in that way. So we'll see how that impacts how we measure Caleb Williams and these other guys coming out. I'll also just say this, and Stroud actually gave a shout out to Ohio State and to Ryan Day. And for as much hate
but not Bill O'Brien.
He did not mention Bill O'Brien. No, he did not. I'm sorry.
The GOAT.
Their times did not overlap, even though Bill O'Brien goes down as an Ohio State legend. But I as much hate as Ryan Day gets and takes on a regular basis from this fan base, and some of it is earned because when you lose to Michigan, it comes with the territory. He every time he's out at the podium, he mentions that. He said it on Wednesday. Like, it's just part of being at Ohio State. You got to live with it. But there's got to be no better testament to the program he's running and him when you have the offensive rookie of the year, who at one point was even in the MVP conversation, and CJ Stroud going up there and saying, hey, thank you, Coach Day. Thank you, Ohio State. Like, you talk about programs that prove that they can develop people. You see Garrett Wilson. You see CJ Stroud winning that award back-to-back. You see the number of guys that go to the NFL and our top draft picks, the wide receivers in particular. You're going to add another one to the list like we just talked about, Marvin Harrison Jr., but that list goes on and on with Chris Olave putting up good numbers and Garrett Wilson putting up big numbers. And Michael Thomas at a point was a great NFL receiver. Like, there's no better testament to the program than those guys vouching for you. And so as much as Ryan Day takes a lot of hate, you got to give him – this is another moment for us to pause and realize that he probably deserves some credit for the talent that he's pumping out and putting into the pros.
Get ready for the hate mail you're going to get from Anthony Lima because you said something nice about Ryan Day. All right, guys, will Ohio State make it 3 for 3 1 year from now and add the 3rd straight offensive rookie of the year for the NFL honors? That kind of does it for us. But again, follow the show wherever you get your podcasts. Apple, Spotify. I keep almost saying Stitcher. That doesn't exist anymore. The free Odyssey app, 923thefan.com. Make sure to comment on 923 The Fan's YouTube channel. Make sure to hit us with the subscription. Like the videos. We appreciate all your support, guys. But next week, we've got more conversations. We should know who the Ohio State offensive coordinator is. We should know maybe a little more clarity at some of the quarterback comments Ryan Day made this week. Big week coming next week. Talk to you next week. Spencer, great stuff today, buddy. Go Bucks.